He will never leave us or forsake us. Today I'd like to share with you what Jesus has taught me so far about persevering when times get tough. How do we keep it real when the challenges come? Let me share with you what I've learned so far. That's me and my wife Julie. That's Laurel. That's our Christmas picture back in 2007, I believe it was. In 2007, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic melanoma. I had tumors all over the place. They had to put a rod all the way down my femur here because they were afraid I was going to break my leg if I stepped off the curb too hard. And at that time, I was given 8 months to live. Well, as you can see, God had other plans. Now, God has not freed my body of cancer yet. But that will never diminish what He's been doing in our lives. And we just thank Him and praise Him for that. So, let me share with you the first lesson that Jesus taught me about perseverance. How you respond in crisis is driven by who you believe is in charge. How you respond in crisis is driven by who you believe is in charge. Let's think about this for a second. If some horrific crisis comes your way and you believe yourself to be in charge, well, that's a heavy burden. That's a big responsibility. And human nature might get you to start asking yourself, well, who can I blame? Or what excuse can I make as to why this thing went so wrong? At the very best, you might become very depressed. At the worst, you maybe might turn to some unhealthy habits, maybe even addictions. Let's look at the other side of the spectrum, though. If that same crisis comes along and you believe God to be in charge from the get-go, well, we first have to then ask ourselves, how big of a crisis is this really? Because in Romans 8:28, the Bible says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. So we might be in some temporary hardships and pain, but as Christians, we know that this too all works for our ultimate good because God loves us. You know, I've heard it said that God cares more about our character than He does our comfort. I believe I can vouch for that. So if you believe that God is in charge, then that might change the way you think about it the next time a trial comes your way. I'd offer you this perspective. When trials come, consider them an honor. Really, Dan? An honor? Yeah, I had a hard time thinking of it that way at first when I got the news in 2007. But soon after that, my dad sent me an email. Helped me change my perspective about that. Here's what he wrote. God is saying, I trust you to stand tall here, Dan. I'm going to be with you. You can do this. I want you to focus completely on me, and I'll take care of the rest. Dad told me, you've been drafted to be in God's army and to be taking the point here. You're at the point, and God is right there with you. We don't know how the battle ends, but you're going to be okay. Don't despair. Don't despair. Don't despair. Hold on to your faith. Whatever happens, it's all good. Wow, that was a game changer for me. I mean, as soon as I was able to embrace this godly perspective, I had this sense of honor come over me. That God had given me this amazing, special assignment. And I never wanted to let Him down. Oh, don't get me wrong, I was petrified when He asked me to go on point for Him. But it felt like an honor. Here's what I wrote about being on point in my journal back then. On point, all your senses go on high alert. You hear the faintest whisper. You spot the slightest movement ahead. You can smell everything and detect the enemy's foul scent from miles away. On point, talking too much can be fatal. So you watch and you listen. On point, you constantly pray as you are walking. And when you're under attack with bullets whistling by your head and mortars exploding all around, you block out all else and you focus on your platoon leader. Your platoon leader frequently uses signals to communicate with you, so you dare not take your eyes off him for long. He gives you an order and you obey it immediately and without hesitation because you know he is the only one who's going to get you through this. You see, being on point is where you learn about faith and the power of obedience. It seems like deserts and large bodies of water hold a special place in God's heart, don't they? There are a lot of stories all throughout the Bible of them, aren't there? You ever think about that? Well, why do you suppose that is? Well, I believe it's because searing deserts and raging storms at sea are where defining moments happen. These are God's training grounds. Think of Moses, for example. He's out there with the Israelites with his back to the Red Sea, and God says, "Raise your staff, Moses." And he raises his staff, and the sea parts. Wow, that was a defining moment. Or what about when the disciples are out on the boat and a raging storm at sea, and here comes Jesus walking toward them on the water. And Peter says, "Well, let me come on out there with you." And he steps out of the boat. That was a defining moment. You know, you may not have personally, literally, endured a searing desert or a raging storm at sea, but I know there are some here that know exactly what that feels like, don't you? If you're in that place right now, remember, this just might be your defining moment. So don't waste it. The year 2008 was a long, hard walk in the desert for me. We did all kinds of chemo, 8 to 10 different kinds of drugs. I lost count. None of them really worked for long anyway. This picture here is of me. I'm on a conference call right there, trying to run a little business that Julie and I steward for the Lord. And that's my cell phone leaning against my head because I'm too tired to even hold it. I can't keep my eyes open, but I'm trying to listen and contribute to this conference call I'm on. But in that long walk in the desert, God showed me that He's never closer to you than when you're right there in the middle of it. You know, in the desert, it may not feel like He's right there close to you, but that doesn't change the fact that He is. And if you earnestly seek Him, He will not hide from you. I mean, after all, He wants a relationship with you. Why on earth would He ever hide from you? So seek Him, and you will find Him. God Himself says in Jeremiah 33, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you the great and unsearchable things you do not know." I think the reason God uses deserts and raging storms at sea is to get us to surrender. Yet I think perseverance is all about surrender. At the end of 2008, the chemo really wasn't working. I'd grown a new tumor in my gallbladder, which had to come out, and they used the term palliative care for that procedure. That lets you know what they thought about my future. There really were no other treatment options available to me at that point. That is when I finally and fully realized I was not in control. You ever heard someone use the expression, "God will never give you more than you can handle"? You ever heard that one? I've used that one once or twice myself. Well, let me clear up a little misconception about that. It comes from 1 Corinthians, which says, "The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, He will show you a way out so that you can endure." Well, now that's talking about temptations, isn't it? It really doesn't say much about raging storms at sea. No. I think in the context of life circumstances, to say that God wouldn't ever give you more than you can handle is just simply not biblical. In fact, I think God is in the business of giving us more than we can handle. I mean, if God never gave you more than you can handle, what would be the purpose of faith anyway? This idea of surrender was never so clear to me than when I was in the middle of my own little storm at sea. Here's what I wrote about it back then. Sometimes I feel so foolish. I'm in a raging storm at sea here, and things look really bleak. My entire being strains as I grapple with the boat wheel against the tremendous force of each crushing wave. My hands are clamped to the wheel like a vice, and they hurt from holding on for so long. Never let go, I shout to myself. Between the high wind, pelting rain, and the saltwater spray, I can't see past the bow of the boat. I blink my eyes as seldom as possible for fear of missing that one huge wave that'll just capsize me and seal my fate in an instant. My eyes burn from staring into the weather. My body shakes fiercely as adrenaline puts all bodily systems on emergency alert. Thoughts begin to creep into my head that my doom is near. Suddenly, I realize that Jesus is going to have to pull my cold, dead hands off this wheel unless I let go of it right now. Immediately, my hands fly off the wheel like the wheel was a red-hot branding iron. And then, Jesus calms the sea. People always tell me what a great fighter I am for having survived stage 4 cancer this long. I tell them I stopped fighting. I surrendered. Here's something else to think about. Jesus sees you right now for what you will become. Let's think about this for a minute. Look at Gideon, for example. Here's Gideon. He's the least in his family, and his tribe is the smallest of all Israel. And he's standing in the bottom of his wine press threshing wheat because he's trying to hide it from the Midianites who are occupying their land at the moment. And here comes the angel of the Lord. And the angel says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Now, do you think Gideon, hiding in the bottom of his wine press, felt like much of a mighty warrior just then? Well, let me ask you, when did the angel call Gideon mighty warrior? Was it before or after Gideon's little band of 300 pounded a 100,000 plus army of the Midianites? Well, it was before. You see, God saw him right then for what he would become. Same is true for you and me. Jesus sees you right now for what you will become. He has a magnificent plan for you. All you've got to do is trust him and follow him. And because Jesus has a magnificent plan for you, that means your mission is much bigger than your current set of circumstances. So set your eyes on things outside and above whatever you're going through right now. You know, never forget that people are watching you. They want to know how you're going to respond when things get tough. They want to know if your faith is for real. More importantly, they want to know if they can trust God. Is God really trustworthy? Let me ask you a question. When does a boat cut its biggest wake? Is it when the boat is just kind of putting along down the canal, 3-4 knots? Or is it when the boat is scooting along at 30 knots up on plane? Or is it when the boat is down in the hole, working its way out of the hole, and the motors are working as hard as they can, and the props are digging deep into the water, and the stern is laying down low, and the waves are just rolling off the sides? That's when a boat cuts its biggest wake. The same is true for you and me. We cut our biggest wake when we're in the hole. Let me tell you a story about a man named Jeff to illustrate this for you a little bit. I've never met Jeff. I don't even know Jeff's last name. Turns out he and I were doing cancer treatments at Moffitt one week, and I'd finished the week of chemo treatment, so my dad had gone downstairs to go to the valet to get our car. And Jeff was down there in his wheelchair with his elderly mother waiting for his car. And my dad explained how Jeff looked. He described him as just being extremely emaciated and looking mighty, mighty poorly. He looked like he was at death's door that moment. And Jeff's car came, and he was clearly needing help getting into his car. His mother couldn't get him we negotiated into the car. So my dad runs over there and helps him into the car. And Jeff says, well, sir, what's your name? And he says, well, I'm Vern Floen, and my son Dan is undergoing treatment here at Moffat as well. And at that moment, Jeff steps outside of his impossible circumstance. And he smiles at my dad and says, now, Vern, how can I pray for you today? Now, there's a man I've never met who changed my life forever. Do you think Jeff cut a deep weight that day? You see, surviving cancer, or you fill in the blank, whatever you're going through right now, it's too small a mission to focus on. Focus above and outside your circumstances. Just love on someone. And God will protect you as you do that. Okay, here's the tough one. The most important thing that God taught me about perseverance is how to spell it. Here's how you spell perseverance. O-B-E-Y. I mean, if you believe that God is in charge and you've surrendered control, you believe He has a plan for you, and that plan is bigger than your current set of circumstances, well, that really only leaves one thing left to do. Whatever God says. So, if God's given you a specific instruction and you're sure it's Him talking to you, follow it immediately and without hesitation, and He will honor your obedience. And when you see what He does, when you obey Him in faith, the next set of instructions you get from Him won't seem quite so daunting. You see, that's how God builds our faith. One obedient step at a time. During the NFL playoffs a couple years ago, Bud Light aired a commercial that I really like because it reminds me of some of the instructions that I get from him once in a while. Watch the video.
Okay, guys, this kick is for the win. Labels out.
Here we go.
Wait, what?
Our proximity to the field creates a parallel connection between the bottle and the ball.
The outward-facing label simulates a smoother contact surface for the kicker.
It's like magic, only real.
Really? Yeah.
It's only weird if it doesn't work. If God's instructions seem pretty crazy sometimes, don't they? But you know what? They always work. Take Naaman, for example, the guy in the Old Testament with leprosy. He calls for the prophet Elisha to come to his home and heal him. And Elisha says, well, no, just go down to the Jordan River and wash yourself 7 times. And Naaman says, well, that's ridiculous. The Jordan River is a cesspool. Why would I do that? And, he's just indignant about it. And finally, his servant kind of talks him into going. He says, just do what the man says. Be obedient. So he says, okay, I'll go. So you can hear him talking on the way to the Jordan River. He's like, well, nothing's going to happen with this cockamamie idea, but, whatever. So he goes down there to the Jordan River and washes 7 times. And what do you think happens? He was healed because he was obedient. In the spring of 2009, God gave me and Julie some pretty crazy sounding instructions, but we followed them. And tumors started shrinking right away, and they continued to shrink for years. No medication of any kind. Doctors started calling me Miracle Man. They were right. However, over time, I began to stray from God's original instructions. So, what do you suppose happened next? I got a little pop quiz from God to make sure I had the obedience thing down right. In April of 2012, my doctor told me I now had 3 tumors growing. Remember that board game we used to play as kids called Operation? Here's what the tumors looked like when we got the news that day, and where the rod was in my left femur. 2 tumors had sparked to life and were growing pretty rapidly. And a 3rd tumor had also emerged. But as we sat there in that exam room, God gave me another set of crazy-sounding instructions. Even as the bad news rolled off my doctor's lips, I heard God tell me, Dan, I want you to take out the rod in your left femur, and I want you to get back to the instructions that I gave you before. I was like, oh man, take out the rod? Really? That was the craziest instruction I'd ever got. I mean, nobody takes out the rod after having put a rod in. That's just crazy. And I'm thinking, that if I ask a doctor that, he's going to think I'm off my rocker. But you see, God had healed both of my femurs. And so the rod was no longer necessary to support my weight. So it took me a few weeks, but after a few weeks of wrestling with it, I finally mustered the courage to ask my doctor if he'd take out the rod. Remember that incredulous look the guy in the Bud Light commercial gave? That's the same look he gave me when I asked that question. And yet, as soon as that rod came out, all the tumors started shrinking or disappearing. They've been shrinking ever since. Let me tie it all together. I think this next clip illustrates what we've been talking about today. It's from the movie Facing the Giants, and the coach has a lesson in perseverance he wants to teach one of his key players. Watch the video.
So, Coach, how strong is Westview this year?
A lot stronger than we are.
You already written Friday night down as a loss, Brock?
Well, not if I know we could beat them.
Come here, Brock. You too, Jeremy.
What, am I in trouble now?
Not yet. I want to see you do the death crawl again, except I want to see your absolute best.
What, you want me to go to the 30?
I think you can go the 50.
50. I can go to the 50 if nobody's on my back.
I think you can do it with Jeremy on your back. But even if you can, I want you to promise me you're going to do your best.
All right.
Your best.
Okay.
You going to give me your best?
I'm going to give you my best.
All right, one more thing. I want you to do it blindfolded.
Why?
Because I want you giving up at a certain point when you can go further. Get down. Jeremy, get on his back. Good tight hold, Jeremy. All right, let's go, Brock. Keep your knees off the ground, just your hands and feet. There you go. A little bit left, a little bit left. There you go. Show me good effort. That way, Brock. Keep coming. There you go. Good start. A little bit left. A little bit left. There you go, Brock. Good strength. That's it, Brock. That's it.
Not the 20 yet?
Forget the 20. You give me your best. You keep going. That's it. No, don't stop, Brock. You got more in you than that.
I ain't done. Just resting a second.
You got to keep moving. Let's keep moving. Let's go. Don't quit till you got nothing left. There you go. Keep moving. Keep moving. Keep moving, Brock. That's it. You keep driving. Keep your knees off the ground. Keep driving it. Your very best. Your very best. Your very best. Keep moving, Brock. That's it. That's it. That's it. Keep going. Don't quit on me. Keep going. Keep driving it. Keep driving. Keep your knees off the ground. That's it. Your very best. Don't quit on me. Your very best. Keep driving. Keep driving. There you go. There you go. That's it. You keep driving. Keep your knees off the ground. Keep driving it. Don't quit till you got nothing left. Keep moving, Brock. That's it. That's it. That's it. Keep going. I want everything you got. Come on. Keep going. It hurts. Don't quit on me. Your very best. Keep driving. Keep driving. There you go. There you go.
He's heavy.
I know he's heavy.
I'm out of strength.
And you negotiate with your body to find more strength, but don't you give up on me, Brock. You keep going. You hear me? You keep going. You're doing good. You keep going. Do not quit on me. You keep going.
It hurts.
I know it hurts. You keep going. You keep going. It's all hard from here. 30 more steps. You keep going, Brock. Come on. Keep going.
Burn.
And let it burn.
It's burning.
It's all hard. You keep going, Brock. Come on. Come on. Keep going. You promised me your best. Your best. Don't stop. Keep going. Too hard. It's not too hard. You keep going. Come on, Brock. Give me more. Give me more. Keep going. 20 more steps. 20 more. Keep going, Brock. Give me your best. Don't quit. No. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't quit. Brock Kelly, you don't quit. Keep going. Keep going. Go, Brock Kelly. You don't quit on me. No, you keep going. You keep going. Go, Brock. 10 more steps. 10 more. 10 more. 10 more. Keep going. Don't quit. Give me yours. You can. You can. 5 more. 5 more. Come on, Brock. Come on. Don't quit. Don't quit. Come on, Brock. 2 more. 1 more.
Look up, Brock. You're in the end zone.
In that last clip, did you see how Brock trusted his coach? He let him put a blindfold on him, for heaven's sakes. He surrendered control, didn't he? Brock didn't know how far he could make it, but he resolved to trust and obey his coach. The coach saw Brock for what he would become, and he saw where he was going and encouraging him every step of the way. As Brock persevered down the field, did you notice where his teammates were? Well, they got up and took notice, didn't they? You think Brock cut a deep wake with his teammates that day? Or did you happen to notice where his coach was when it got harder and harder and harder for Brock to keep on going? Well, his coach got closer and closer and closer. So how about you? You may be in a searing desert or a raging storm at sea right now, or you see one right around the corner. I urge you to think about what a relief it will be to lay that burden at the feet of Jesus Christ. Wow, what a relief that will be. I think this is what Jesus means when he says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." I mean, imagine having so much peace in the middle of a raging storm that you can step outside your circumstance and impact somebody's life forever. That's the kind of peace that changes the world. That's the kind of peace that surpasses all understanding. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." Thanks for letting me come and share with you today. Press on.